Hi everyone, today we have a lot of maintenance to do. Well, not a lot, a little bit of maintenance to do on the Vinca minor. So I just wanted to kind of get into it a little bit. So first of all, let's talk about Vinca minor as a plant. It's also known as Periwinkle and sometimes called Myrtle as well. This huge bit of it that you see here is obviously also mixed in with some English ivy, but it started out as one flat of just a couple of little tiny plugs, and that was one of the first plants that I planted 17, 18 years ago. The nursery that I got it from has actually gone out of business since then, sadly. It was one of my favorite nurseries, but it's been a while. You can't tell right now, it's crazy bright, but this actually is full 2-part shade in this area here. Once these leaves come in, it'll be a big difference. But it is blooming right now, and now's the time to do some maintenance. Typically you don't do maintenance on something when it's blooming, but for this, it will actually just encourage the blooms. So I am gonna go ahead and do that today. It's gonna make things look a whole lot better too. The other reason why we are doing some maintenance on it is because it can be an invasive plant, especially if it's out in the full sun. You can pick it up and pull it very easily, but I have it in this raised stone bed on purpose because that helps for me to know where the edges of it should be and to keep it in check. The other thing that we want to do to help keep it in check, and this is part of the maintenance that's going to help today, is you can see there are some pieces that are new growth that poke up like this, and those actually are not going to flower. The purpose of these are to trail. So it's sending out new growth to continue to move the plant forward. And since we don't want it to spread any more than it already is, obviously if you do want it to spread, then you'll leave those on there, but it's where I want it to be. So not only are we going to cut it back so that it's no longer at the stones, but we are going to take the weed whacker and just trim the tops of these pieces off and flatten them out. And that's actually going to encourage more blooming because the energy of the plant is not going to be going into moving forward. It will have more energy to produce more blooms. It's really, really easy to grow. I have heard of some problems happening with it. They're mostly fungal though, so I've never experienced any sort of problem with it because it's in a raised bed, and if anything, we have problems with dryness, not problems with moisture. So I'm not super concerned about that. I've never had any issue with it. And any plant that you see at my house that has lasted for over a decade has gone through severe drought. Shoot, any plant that you see at my house that has lasted just through last year has gone through severe drought. We don't water anything. It's just too much of a big area to have to be able to water things. So we do try to rock with the whole right plant, right place scenario. So that being said, they're extremely drought tolerant. They're doing a great job blooming right now, even though last year all of our plants were really, really put to the test as far as drought goes. Therefore, it makes a really, really great dry shade plant because even when it does rain, there's a huge tree canopy when the leaves come through, so it's not getting a ton of water. Even when I planted these to begin with, the bed was very new, so I just backfilled it with a bunch of leaves. So it was growing in a bunch of leaf litter, and I tried to plant some other things at the same time, and nothing really happened. You can see there's still some leaves left that came back after I took care of it in the fall. So it doesn't look the cleanest, but honestly, I think that cutting it back from the stone does a whole lot more to make this area look cleaner than cleaning out the leaves. As I look at Winnie over here playing in it and throwing her tennis ball around, I do want to let you know that if you have pets, you do want to be careful with Vinca minor. It's not really pet safe. I'm not worried about what she's doing now because she's not eating it. She's never tried to eat it. There's not a problem if it touches their skin or anything like that. It's more if they ingest it. So it's not great for dogs if you have dogs that love to eat plants, or cats or anything like that, even the chickens. However, that being said, the chickens free range, they leave it alone. They know not to eat it. I've never had a problem with the chickens eating it. They do sometimes walk through it, but they don't last very long. They don't hang out in it. But just something that you might want to keep in mind if you have pets. I saw one blog that said something about it being intolerant to frost. That is shocking to me. For me, it's evergreen. We're in a zone, it's like a 6B, but since they kind of changed things, they're calling it a 7A now. But we go through hard frost for sure. And like I said, it's been here for almost 2 decades. It blooms really easily, even though it's a shade plant, and a lot of times I'll get second blooms out of it. It's funny how, yeah, it's blooming now in the spring, but sometimes it'll just start blooming randomly, like maybe late summer. I could be wrong on the timing of that. I'm very bad about timing, but it just keeps blooming for me a lot of times. It'll come back when I don't expect it to later in the season, especially if I do get rid of these trailing pieces. So we're definitely going to take care of that today. All right, I think that's all we had to talk about, so I'm gonna go ahead and get to work. We're just gonna do some regular edging. Make sure anytime you use a weed whacker, you are protecting your eyes, and I would always recommend wearing pants to protect your skin, and maybe even long sleeve. Fortunately, it's nice and cool out here, so that's not gonna be a problem today. You might even wanna think about wearing a mask. So there you have it. I'll still have to go through and weed some stuff by hand, but not bad for like 10 minutes of maintenance. It makes it look a whole lot better. And had I been better about doing this last year and cutting back just a little bit further, then I wouldn't have to do any pulling by hand. But I'll go ahead and do that once I get some gloves, and it'll be good to go.